announcing these big changes as of 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
If you're making big changes, does that mean you were doing something wrong before?
Look, this is a great opportunity for us to reset the balance in favor of free expression. As Mark says in that video, what we're doing today is we're getting back to our roots in free expression. There's a number of changes we're making, but if I could, and just highlight three.
Yep.
First is, as you heard, we're eliminating the third-party fact-checking system. Well-intentioned at the outset, but there's just been too much political bias in what they choose to fact-check and how, so we're just scrapping it entirely.
What do you mean? You mean you?
The fact-checkers.
You set up your, but they're yours.
Well,
right?
so the idea was they're independent fact checkers, but they've just been too biased. And so what we're going to do instead is adopt a system like X has of community notes. So we're just going to rely on our own community of users to provide people more information about what they're seeing. And we think that's going to work
So
great.
give us an example. If we said, if the headline is Donald Trump won the presidency, then anyone in the community can write notes underneath it?
Yeah, great question. So somebody can write a note, and then the way it works is different people on the platform can sort of vote on that note. And if you get people who usually disagree, who all say, yeah, that sounds right, then that note gets put on the post and people see it. X has been doing it for a while. We think it's working really well, and we're going to adopt that system.
Yeah, so you heard that, and that is some great news. Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, basically, so Facebook, Instagram, promoting more free speech. I can't be mad at that. Now, am I a little bit skeptical? Yeah, there's still a piece of me that's like, if Kamala had won, buddy, would you be saying this? I doubt it. But I guess we don't have to go down that route because we won. And Trump isn't even the president yet. He is the president-elect. He hasn't even taken office. And we already see so many different changes. And actually, I made a video on this probably about a month ago now. Quite a while ago. Actually, probably over a month ago. On the same topic where, things are already starting to fall in place and Trump hasn't even taken office yet. Which lets you know that we all made the right decision. Okay, and this is just one of the latest things that is falling into place, and that is the promoting of free speech, allowing free speech the way that it should be, right? Now, of course, there are some folks on the left who are crying and whining about all of this, and one of them is fired anchor Brian Stelter. Check it out.
It gets to this broader sense that when people like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg talk about free speech, everybody wants free speech, but it oftentimes seems that these tech CEOs actually are favoring or preferring a certain kind of speech, right? They're favoring their own speech or their own political preferences and not the actual entire user or the community's speech. The changes announced by Meta today are very much a MAGA makeover, a pro-Trump makeover, and that's going to win Meta some conservative users, but it may repel some liberals. That's the same thing we've seen happen on Elon Musk's X. He's turned it into more of a right-wing platform where he's pro-free speech when it's really pro-Musk or pro-Trump speech.
All right, Brian Stelter, thanks as always. And you mentioned those changes over at Meta. That is going to be fascinating to watch moving forward because obviously Facebook and Instagram, places like that, have also been accused of being super spreaders of disinformation, misinformation. We'll keep our eye.
Get rid of the label of disinformation and misinformation, and let's just call it information. Whether or not you want to accept it or not, that is up to you. I'm so sick of these labels. But notice that he said that everybody wants freedom of speech, but it seems like these platforms are favoring Trump MAGA speech. What are you talking about? I would love to ask Brian, what exactly do you mean by that? So the promoting of freedom of speech is a MAGA thing? So you're admitting that you guys on the left hate freedom of speech. Because notice he said it was MAGA in right wing. How is it right wing when both of these guys, Elon and Mark Zuckerberg, didn't say, hey, you're allowed to say this, but you're not allowed to say that. They both just said, hey, We're allowed to have open, honest debates. These things that used to be off limits are no longer off limits. Just talk about them. Things that may be a lie, we'll allow the community to police itself via community notes. We're not going to ban anybody. We'll just put a community note below it based on whether or not we have enough people who typically would disagree agreeing on that community note. If we have enough people agreeing, we'll post that community note up underneath the post so anybody who comes across it can read it if they like. What about that says right wing? Exactly. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It is the promoting of the First Amendment, which is freedom of speech. And Brian Stelter just said the quiet part out loud. They don't like freedom of speech. Another person who hates this idea, of course, is Joyless Reed, aka Joy Reed. Check it out.
Why would conservatives think fact-checking is biased against them? I mean, what are you sharing if you keep getting fact-checked for false information? Think about it. What were conservatives sharing on Meta that was getting flagged so much? Are they spreading false information? And why were they so eager? And why are Republicans in general so eager to end the idea of fact-checking? What are they trying to share? What is the motivation for not wanting it to be fact-checked? Just something to think about while you're noodling things.
One of the motivations is the fact that we cannot go to people like you, Joy Reid, to get the truth, even though you're on national television. You sit on national television and you lie. And it's one of the reasons why you had to take a pay cut recently. And even with that pay cut, I still think you're very well overly paid, very much overly paid. But yeah, so continue on with this and you'll have another pay cut and then you'll eventually be fired. So carry on. But that is the reason why we don't like fact checking. Another reason why is a lot of you folks may remember. You guys remember when the 51 intelligence agents all came out and signed a letter and said that the laptop was fake and we weren't allowed to talk about it on social media? Because it was apparently a Russian disinformation. Oh, right. That was actually the truth, but they fact-checked us and we weren't allowed to talk about it. We weren't allowed to say it. Right. Exactly. I'll rest my case there, but I have more examples, but I don't need to go any further. I rest my case. Now, I want to play this clip of what Mark Zuckerberg had to say, because obviously this is the guy at the center of it all. It's his company, after all, his companies. These are some of the changes that Mark Zuckerberg is looking to make. Check it out.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes.
So he admitted, basically, the fact that Trump won was a resounding FU to policing freedom of speech, and the fact that we want freedom of speech. So he's listening. I respect that. And I respect the fact that he admitted it. Okay? I'll give him a little credit for that. He admitted it.
Simplifying our policies and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third,
Bing, 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 bing. That's one of the things that they do, right? And they accuse you of being this massive hater, you know, phobe this, phobe that, anti this, anti that, right? Whenever you disagree with them and you have a differing opinion, and some of these platforms labeled it as such as well, because there were people on the left that were very loud and vocal who would say, hey, this is hate speech. And quite frankly, it isn't. It's just speech that they don't like. It's speech that disagrees with what it is that they believe. I don't see any problem with that. And there shouldn't be any problem with that. We should be allowed to disagree. We should be allowed to have open and honest debates. But of course, people on the left don't like that. Whenever you disagree, they call it hate speech. Every single time.
We're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive. Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there.
Yeah, I may actually make a video on that. Well, what's going on overseas, man, is quite scary, because we were pretty close to heading in that direction. Now, obviously, there would have been a lot of hoops to jump through here in America before we got to that level. But if Kamala had won, make no mistake about it, we were going to be well on our way towards what's going on over there right now. And like I said, I'm being a little vague because I may make a video on that. I've been seriously considering it because your jaw will drop. I'm telling you, it will drop.
Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is
also, well, let me let him finish.
Time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
So, obviously, I think Mark Zuckerberg saw the writing on the wall, and he realized, hey, if we're going to expand these companies, we're going to have to work with this administration. And if we're going to work with this administration, we can't be policing speech, okay? We have to go more towards the stance that X has, which is basically freedom of speech. Now, you can't just post completely anything on X, but you could post a lot of crazy stuff on X. And that goes to my next point. I think the penalties for, anyone posting any type of, I'm trying to keep it PG here, child, right, content, if you know what I mean, should be given the death penalty. You start giving people the death penalty for stuff like that, I'm not saying it would completely disappear, but it'd be next to nothing. It would be next to nothing. Okay. So yeah, increase the penalty for that. I wouldn't be mad about that. I'd cheer it on. Anybody, doing that kind of stuff to kids. Oh yeah. Death penalty. Get up out of here. Gone. Off with them. You know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion on it. Y'all can let me know how you feel. If y'all feel that's a little too far, let me know. I personally don't. I don't believe the penalty for even harming, a little one, right, in that kind of way. Forget about the video, but harming someone in that kind of way, a little one in that kind of way, I don't think the penalty is stiff enough for even that, let alone posting that type of content. So yeah, anything posting, harming, death penalty. Death penalty. That's what I think. But what do you say? Let me know. But yeah, listen, while I am a little bit skeptical, and he admitted that because Trump won, he's moving in this direction, I can't be too mad about it, right? I can't be too critical of it, because at the end of the day, take the win, right? And this is most definitely a win. Most definitely a win. And I said this before, leading up to the election, without X, make no mistake about it, I'm not saying Trump would have lost, but it would have been a hell of a lot more difficult to win. Because what X did, and what Meta is probably about to do, is push other platforms that want to keep up with, the growth of X and the growth in usership of what may be Meta here shortly as well. It's going to push them to promote more freedom of speech. Because when you have that, people migrate towards that and migrate away from where they're not allowed to speak. You see what I mean? So it opens up that door a little bit, and X kept that door open just wide enough for these other platforms not to completely close it on us, right? And them to not be allowed to use the loophole that they're technically not the government, so they're not going against our freedom of speech, right? Because that was what the Biden and Kamala administration tried to use. These platforms aren't technically a part of the government, so you can't. They're private companies, so they're allowed to police what's going on their personal platforms. But like I said, X kept that door open. And now, hopefully, Meta forces that door open even more, which, forces other companies to do the same. So, hey, take the win. We're getting a lot of them right now. We're getting a whole lot of them, and Trump isn't even in office yet. Just wait until he takes office, and he's got that pen in his hand, and he's able to sign some stuff and get some stuff really rolling. Whoo, baby. If we winning this much already, and he ain't even got the pin yet, he's not sitting at the desk yet. Come on now. It's going to be a great 4 years, man. I can't wait. We don't have long to wait either. Coming soon. Stay tuned. Peace and love. I'm out.